Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Flavor and Fiction. So the category that I have just completed for my 2019 reading challenge is a book that is a story within a story. And I have chosen Dracula by Bram Stoker. I decided to choose a classic and I was really impressed. I mean, we all pretty much know the story of Dracula, or at least I thought. We all know who Dracula is, but I did not realize that there was such a beautiful and horrifying story behind Dracula. And I'm really happy that I read it. You'll have to forgive my workout clothes here. I was my back to the gym t-shirt. I was going to go to the gym, but then what had happened was, I'm still hopeful that I'm going to get my workout in. So I'm keeping my workout clothes on as inspiration. And I hope you guys can hear me a little bit better this time around because I went on Amazon and got one of the cheapest mics that I could find, the one that clips on here. So I won't sound all and muffled. So I hope you can hear me. So before we get started on the review, I'm going to let you know what we're making today. And being that we just read Dracula, you gotta know what the secret ingredient is. That's right, you guessed it. Garlic. I know, it was corny of me, but it had to be done. So what we're gonna be making with our organic garlic, because I'm fancy, apparently, we're gonna be making something I found on Pinterest again. We're gonna be making garlic smashed potatoes. And I'm really excited because they look really good, as you can see in the picture right here. We're not going to be putting the little sliced almonds on top. It's too much. I'm fancy, but not that fancy. So the recipe, by the way, called for baby potatoes. I'm hoping these petite potatoes are what they meant. So the first thing I have to do is wash and boil the potatoes. And while those are boiling, we'll get started on the story. Okay, so it says to cover them in just enough water that can, put in just enough water that can cover them. And then you want to put in a little bit of salt, like a teaspoon. Bring to a boil, and then we're going to let it simmer until they're soft. Okay, so here we are waiting for our potatoes to boil. So let's get started on Dracula. So we start off with this young lawyer named Jonathan Harker. And this whole story is told through letters and diary entries, and that's why it's a story within a story. So Jonathan is this young lawyer who's headed to Transylvania to speak to a man named Count Dracula about a real estate deal. And when he gets to Transylvania and tells everyone that, he's headed to the castle, I think that's what it was, Castle Dracula, everyone is like afraid for him, and he gets really unsettled by the way that they're reacting. One woman makes him like, okay, if you're gonna go, bring this cross with you, bring garlic with you. Like, he's very confused as to what, he's confused as to why everyone's reacting this way. But he goes anyway because it's a business deal, so he has to go. So he goes, and when he pulls up to Castle Dracula, he hears wolves howling and he gets very unsettled. But then when the Count appears, the wolves die down. So he meets him, this tall, thin, pale man, and they have kind of like an okay day together. Like, he takes him out on the town, shows him around, very normal. And then the next day, he realizes that he's locked in the castle, and he becomes alarmed. And the Count is showing up at odd times, and he can't find him half the time. Then things start happening where he thinks he's seeing things. There are these 3 female vampires that are like ghosts. I don't even know. But he doesn't know if he dreamt the experience or if they were real. He's starting to quickly, he realizes he's like losing his mind. He can't tell what's real and what's not real. So eventually Jonathan discovers his secret, that he survives off of drinking blood and that he is intended to be the next victim. So he tries to attack him through like normal means, like beating him like he's a regular man. And then that proves to be futile. So now he's trapped in the castle. Count Dracula leaves him to head for England, and he takes with him 50 boxes of dirt, just so you know. Meanwhile, back in England, Jonathan's fiance, Mina, is getting worried because she hasn't heard from him. Things are weird. In the beginning, the Count would, he had Jonathan pre-date letters, so he would send them out so people wouldn't get suspicious. But Mina, knowing that the letters didn't sound right, she knew something was wrong. And then when they stopped coming all together, she was freaking out. So she's visiting her friend Lucy, and her friend Lucy starts having these spells of sleepwalking out of nowhere. And Mina has caught her several times and started sleeping in the room with her to keep her from sleepwalking. And the morning after she sleepwalks, Mina started noticing that there were these 2 little prick marks on her neck. And she thought that maybe she must have bumped into something while she was sleepwalking. Okay, so every morning Lucy's getting weaker and weaker. Finally, her fiance calls a doctor in, and they have to give her a blood transfusion. And it seems to bring her back to life. Like, she's great. And then a couple nights later, she sleepwalks again, and eventually she becomes so weak that she ends up dying. And that's not really a spoiler. It's toward the beginning of the book, so I'm not going to consider that a spoiler. But she dies. So now her fiance is destroyed. The doctor is so curious as to what's going on that he calls in a specialist friend of his from, I want to say Switzerland, but I'm not entirely positive. But he calls in another doctor. So now there's the fiance and 2 doctors and Mina, who all know that something's going on. Something happened to Lucy, and they're trying to figure this out. When he brings the doctor over from Switzerland, maybe, the doctor says, listen, I know you're not going to believe what I have to say, and it may shock you, but what we need to do is find Lucy, cut her head off, and stuff it with garlic. So the fiance is like, what? I just lost her, and now you want to desecrate her. So the specialist takes his doctor friend to the cemetery one night, and they see her ghost, what they think is her ghost, they're not sure if it's her ghost or her body, walking around the cemetery. And around this time, small children are turning up missing, and when they're found, they have little prick marks on them. So the doctor from Switzerland somehow knows what's happening. He's seen a case like this before, if you've heard of this or whatever, but no one else knows what's happening. But he convinces them that the only way to stop her is to do this. So they eventually let him. So in the midst of all this, Jonathan was able to free himself and escape the castle. And he makes his way back to England, and he is just a wreck. Like, he looks like he's about to die. He's thin, he's pale, but they're able to nurse him back to health. But he is just traumatized. So this group of people, you got Lucy's fiance, you got the doctor, the specialist doctor, the fiance's friend, Mina, and Jonathan. So you got a group of 6 people who are tracking down Count Dracula and the 50 boxes of dirt, because according to folklore, he needed the dirt from his homeland to sustain himself. Okay, so I'm just gonna poke a couple and see how soft they are. It's okay. I think it's a potato masher, because that's what you're really checking for. You're going to use a potato masher, and you want to make sure that you're not struggling too hard. So I'm just going to leave these in here for just a couple more minutes. So they start to notice that Mina is starting to look a little pale and unhealthy too. And instead of putting 2 and 2 together, they think that she's just being a frail female and just can't handle all this horrible stuff that's happening. So one night, one of the doctors has an uneasy feeling about the way she was behaving, and he went to check on their room in the middle of the night, and they found Jonathan. By this time they were married. Jonathan was unconscious. Mina was next to him, and Dracula was there in full form, and he not only drank her blood, but he brought her face to like his open wound in his chest and made her drink his blood. It was like, what is this Dracula stuff? Like, it's so much more complicated than I thought. So Dracula then vanishes and goes back to Transylvania, or heads towards Transylvania. Mina thinks that she's doomed. Everyone thinks that she's doomed, or that she's going to turn into a vampire and they'll have to kill her just like Lucy. So now she's worried and she's already resigned to the fact that she's going to die. But she's like, look, before I die, let's get this guy. So apparently with her drinking from him, she's able to have a special connection with him, with his mind. So she can tell that he is on a boat headed back to Transylvania. Like, she can see him. But the flip side is he can kind of read her thoughts as well. So they make a plan to go get him, and the plan's thwarted because, you know, they told Mina too much, and then they have to, I mean, this thing was like, it really had you sitting on the edge of your seat. And the thing is, the language in this book is so superfluous, and it's so flowery, and I think it's really beautiful. I can see how some people might think that it's a little much to get through when you're trying to you're trying to read a story and just get to the point, like what happened. But I really enjoyed it, to tell you the truth. Once they realize that he has hidden his 50 boxes of dirt all around, I guess, the city, they set on a mission to find them and destroy them one by one. And then they realize, after doing all that, that they don't quite have 50. So they realize that he had taken some back to Transylvania. So now they have to figure out how to beat him there, how to find these boxes of dirt and destroy them, and then how to destroy him when he catches up to them. I mean, it was harrowing. And because I don't want to ruin the grand finale for you, I'll stop. But it is really worth it. This is one of the classics that I thought there's no purpose in reading, because, like, I know the story of Dracula. It's a vampire. He turns into a bat. He drinks blood. I get it. But it's so worth it. Okay, let's check on our potatoes. I think they're done. Okay, I really think that's good enough. So you want to drain all the water. All right, then we're going to put them on a baking tray. It didn't say to line it, but I just went ahead and did it. Okay, here we are. Let's see how they mash. Let's try this one. Ooh, oh. Okay, so here are our smashed potatoes. What we're gonna do is drizzle some olive oil. Whoa, that's a little more than a drizzle. Come on, Rhonda. Probably, oh, for crying out loud in the morning. Well, there's our drizzle. Ooh. Okay, then we're gonna put on some salt and pepper. And there we go. Okay, salt and pepper. Now we're gonna put this in the oven for 20 minutes while we make our garlic spread. So the garlic quote-unquote spread is really just 2 tablespoons of olive oil with some garlic. And it said 2 garlic cloves, but I just did 1 because even though it's our secret ingredient, it's just a little much. Woohoo! They look nice and crispy. Okay, now we're supposed to spoon a bit of our spread on here, but since I put on too much oil earlier, I'm just gonna do a little bit. Okay, it was too much to do with one hand, but that's what it looks like. Now we're gonna add on some paprika. Okay, we're gonna do a better job of sprinkling this time, just so don't. I can't. Okay, I don't want to do too much. Oregano can be a little overpowering, I think. And then to top it off, we're just going to do a couple of green onions here. So, do these look like the picture? It smells so good. Okay, so here they are on a plate. I am super excited to try this. They look so good. Here we go. That is really good. That one had a little concentration of paprika. But these are really good. I would make these again. Probably with a meal next time. But anyway, so to close out on Dracula, I really think that the moral of the story, and it didn't even need a moral because I mean, just as an adventure story, it's great. But I think the moral of the story is that where a few good men and at least one smart woman convene, they can pretty much conquer anything. And that's what it was. It was a lot about the goodness of man. And so, I mean, it was a feel-good, but also very gruesome story. So well done, Bram Stoker. And, you know, if you want to start reading the classics, that's a good one to start with. And these potatoes are delicious. So I'm going to put where you can find the book and where you can find this recipe down below. And that's it. I'm going to go eat my potatoes now. So thanks for joining for another episode of Flavor and Fiction.